Sahana bhavatu sahanau bhunaktu sah viryam karvavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmad Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Karpanya Dosho Pahata Swabhavaha Prichhami Tvam Dharma Sammurchetaha Yashreyasya Nishchitam Bruhi Tanmay Shishyaste Ham Shadi Mam Tvam Prapannam. Om Vame Manasi Pratishtita Mano Me Vachi Pratishtitam Avir Avirma Edhi Vedasya Ma'anistaha Shrutam Me Ma Prahasihi Anena Adhitena Ahoratran Sandadami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tatvaktaram Avatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram Avatu Vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunayama Devaha Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatraha Stiraira Ange Stushtvagvam Swastanubhihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vradhashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastina Stakshyo Arishtanemihi Swastino Brahaspatir Datatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Aham Vikshasya Reriva Kirti Prishtam Gireriva Urdho Pavitro Vajiniva Swamamritam Asmi Dravidagvam Savarchasam Sumedha Amritokshitaha Iti Trishankor Vedanuvachanam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Narayan, Narayan, everyone.
Narayan, Narayan. Okay, so we are on the last shloka of chapter 5 today. Okay, so as we are closing up chapter 5, right, last shloka today that we'll be doing, I thought it would be good for us to have a small summary of chapter 5, right? So if I have to really do a very quick summary, the most important thing that we need to remember is that what is real sannyas, right? This was the crux of this chapter. So the real sannyas is leaving all our likes, our dislikes, ego, and attachment to results. If we give this up, that is the real sannyas, not, giving up eating food that is cooked with fire, or going into a jungle or a mountain, or wearing robes or orange robes. That's not real sannyas. The real sannyas is giving up our likes, dislikes, attachment to results. That is the real sannyas. So we have to remember that Bhagwan Ji has not given us a to-do list. Okay, he has not given us a to-do list ki naam jap karo, do puja or do fasting. That is not given by Bhagwan Ji. It's not a to-do list. He has given us a to-be list. Be a person. All the to-do lists that we keep hearing about, these are all means to be that person. Very, very important to remember. Those to-do things are not an end in themselves. They are only a means to achieve that to-be list that Bhagwan Ji has given us, right? Every karma that we do, every single karma, we are doing it for ourselves and our own purification, our own shuddhi, not for anybody else. We're not doing anybody any favors. That's something we have to remind ourselves again and again, because more often than not, our ego will kick in and we'll start feeling, Array, I'm doing this for such and such person. Array, look at how much I do for my company. Array, look how much I do for my children. I do for my spouse or spouse's family, right? We have to remind ourselves everything we are doing is a favor to ourselves and not to anybody else at any stage. And when we do that action, that karma, with the yog bhav, when we are connected to the Lord, with that, when we are in yoga with the Lord, when we are doing that karma, that takes us to a completely new level. It takes away all our fears. It gives us a completely new type of energy and propels us to much greater heights towards whatever goals that may have been set. So another important thing to remember would be that we need to be 100% involved in anything we do. Kuch bhi ho, whether it's smallest of the things or the biggest of the things. We have to be constantly 100% involved. Now, 100% involvement does not mean 100% engagement, does not mean 100% entanglement. There should be 0% entanglement, 0% engagement, but 100% involvement, right? So all of us have different types of things that we have to do during the day in every role that we have, right? And in every role, there are things that we love to do, and there are things that we don't enjoy so much, right? The boring parts of whatever role we have to do. It doesn't matter whether it's the boring or the exciting part. We have to be 100% and give 100% to every single aspect and not crivare, this part is so boring, yeah, I just have to somehow get done with it. That is not the attitude a karma yogi can have. A karma yogi brings 100% of themselves to every single aspect of their life. And that being present, fully present in every moment, in every activity, irrespective of what it may be, is called a meditative state of being. Right? So we are moving on to our last shloka in this chapter is about meditation. It's about bhakti yoga, which is going to be the next shatak. And the next chapter that we are going to do will be all about meditation. So we're going to learn a lot more about what meditation means. And we will learn that meditation is not an act. It's a state of being that we have to achieve. It's not an activity that we will do in sitting in one corner, in one place. That activity, that kriya is a part of it. But end of the day, again, as with everything else, as with every other to-do list, it is not the end in itself. It is a means to achieving a meditative state in everything we do. Okay. So, so with that summary, we will start with the last shloka, and as we traverse this path, right, and as we learn to get into that meditative state, we will realize that happiness and enjoyment is a state of mind. It is not something that we work to get. We will work out of happiness and enjoyment and joy, and it comes from within. We will stop looking for it outside of ourselves. At end of the day, what is the promise that Bhagwanji has given us? The promise is that we are all kings and queens, Shahenshah. We have to live like one. And what does a king or a Shahenshah or a queen does? She's always in a giving state, because she's a king, right? She's a king or a queen. She doesn't need anybody else to give. People come to them for seeking gifts. So when you are in a giving mode, when you are in a generosity space, when you are in a space of no abhav, when there is a space of abundance, you're constantly giving to others because there is so much of overflow of abundance inside of you. You're constantly in a space of giving. That is your true nature. Not being a beggar where we are constantly taking from other people, other relationships, other things, other any kind of activity that we do. If we are taking, if we have that taker mentality, then we are being a beggar. That is not our true nature. That means we are in touch with our body consciousness. We are not in touch with, we are not in yoga. In yoga, we are all kings and queens. And we are always in a space of giving because there is so much of abundance. Right? Aham rikshasya rereva kirti prishtham girereva. I am the source. I am the root of this tree. I am the creator of this universe. So if I am the creator, there kahin abhav to hai nahi. We are all in a space of abundance. So we'll start with Shloka 29. Smita, will you read with us? Connection for Shlok 28, please.
Sure. The practice of Sankhya Yoga or Karma Yoga in this manner requires intense and sustained effort. Despite all care, some fault or the other is likely to creep in, thus offsetting the effort in some measure. To obviate this difficulty, the Lord now stresses the value of bhakti or devotion to Him, in the concluding shloka of this chapter.
Bhoktaram yajna tapasam
Bhoktaram yajna tapasam
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Suhridam Sarvabhutanam
Suhridam Sarvabhutanam
Nyatva Mam Shantim Rachati.
Gyatva Mam Shantim Rachati.
Bhoktaram is the one who does the bhog, one who is the receiver of all outcomes. Yajna tapasam is yajna is the yajna and the tap. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, the Lord of all worlds, the Maheshwar of Sarva Loka, Lord of all worlds. Suhridam is benefactor. Sarva Bhutanam, all beings, of all beings. Nyatva, knowing. Mam, me. Shanti Mrachati, achieves everlasting peace.
One who compliments me as the receiver of the outcome of all dedicated actions and self-regulatory practices, and as the God of all gods, yet a selfless benefactor of all beings, attains to everlasting peace. The unique discipline of bhakti. Devotion to the Lord occupies a unique position in all disciples. In fact, it is an independent discipline as well as consummation of all disciplines. Practiced as a discipline, it makes the entire life endowed with unique sweetness and it imbues it with a very pleasant hue.
So, I think in the connection, the very first line, and something we all are beginning to realize also as we're implementing these principles, it takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of commitment to manage your schedule, to make for Sunday class, to do your swadhyay, to be aware of your principles, to implement it in the right situation. And as you do it, you will falter. You will still get angry. You will still experience sadness. You will still experience grief. Because our mental muscle to implement these principles is not that strong. So sometimes it might feel very daunting that I'm so far away that all of this is great in theory, but I just can't make sense of it practically, right? Because in our own heads, we're muddled with so many preconceived biases and notions that we aren't even aware of, right? And in those moments, you may feel lost. You may feel disheartened, right? And this shloka finds its place right after 2 shlokas of meditation, um, because it stresses the importance upon leaning on him. You are doing it not for yourself. You're not doing it for your own. You're not doing it because you want to control anything. You're doing it for his pleasure. Because end of the day, everything that we're doing is irrelevant. We've discussed this earlier also. 50 years after we die, nobody will remember our name or any action that we do. Whether we made an extraordinary effort to make your own kid happy, 50 years from now, our kids will be really old. Chances are they won't remember that moment. So everything we're chasing towards or being attached towards is very temporary. Eventually, the world where it came from will eventually go back there, which is Bhagwanji, which is Brahman. So everything that you're doing is an act towards that final motion, which is returning back to him. Once you understand this knowledge, once you understand this and have this faith imbibed in you, then it's so much easier to live life, because everything is for the best. Everything is for your own benefit, even if it did not work out for you, because it's all culminating in that direction. The only thing that comes in the way of us truly believing it is our sense and our importance to control things, control action or control outcome or whatever, right? But eventually, that's the flow of nature. So there was an example that crossed my mind and I've completely forgotten. But so coming back to the previous 2 shlokas, right, on meditation. So the first 5 chapters, Karma Yogi, up to this point was all about sadhana, practice, implement these principles. Chapter 6 is about meditation. The last 2 shlokas were also about meditation. Purpose of meditation is, one, to have a mastery over your own body and mind. But more importantly, it's to access the Atma ka Gyan. It's to access that wisdom inside of us. It's to be able to listen to your soul, right? That's what eventually brings you peace. That is Atma. And the next stage, we again discussed this in the previous shloka, is that your meditation can take you only till the Agya Chakra, which is number 6. The seventh chakra, which is the Sahasra Chakra, is only, so the medulla plexus is here. So your meditation can only open chakra up to here, and the cerebral chakra is here. No matter how much meditation you do, this will not get opened. And this is the connection with the divine, with Brahman. This is opened by his grace. And for his grace to come in, you need bhakti. Which is why this shloka of bhakti fits in really well with the last 2 shlokas of meditation. But it also gives you that when you're practicing your sadhana, bhakti is what you lean on. Because mistakes are okay as long as that mistake is also offered to him. I am sorry, I made a mistake. I made my son's life, I may have made him really unhappy because I was angry. I'm sorry, please forgive me, take care of him.
Not just that, but also like I am trying hard to do something that does not come naturally to me. And just put that entire practice, the onus of Bhupanji, help me in improving myself. Absolutely. He will help you. Help me in getting rid of this demon of anger. Yeah. Put it at his feet and say, I will work hard, but I need your help. I need your grace to get better.
And our natural way, the way we are wired because of our upbringing and society, is we tend to blame ourselves for everything. And I couldn't do it because of this reason, and I'm not good enough, or I'm so lazy, or that person did not help me, so I couldn't do it. Like, it's all the blaming, right? That, and we live with that day in, day out. With bhakti, it becomes far easier for you to digest,
To let go. You
To
don't
let go.
digest, you just let go.
learn
need
and
to
let
let
go, learn and let go.
And not hold on to all that guilt, the shame, or any of those negative feelings that come to us on a
Because
daily basis.
you also have a certain amount of faith that if a mistake has been made, it's been made for you to learn, and the consequences of that mistake are also for everyone's ultimate benefit.
And who's the bhokta of that mistake? Who's the bhokta of anything that goes well? Is him, Bhagwan Ji, not you. You are not the receiver of those outcomes. The receiver of all outcomes, good or bad, is him. It's a transition, but we found the means to get there so far, right? So we'll add on to that going forward.
All actions are then performed in the same spirit as in Karma Yoga. But in addition, all these are undertaken as part of a divine play. As such, the mind experiences a peculiar sweetness and ecstasy all the time. To a devotee, even the sufferings of life appear to be part of the divine play. For example, in a play, an actor may be playing a part in which severe punishment is meted out to him. As required by the script of the play, he may give expression to tortured feelings as if he was actually undergoing that punishment. But he understands fully that it is for the gallery only. A devotee has the same outlook for the sufferings of life. This is why the path of devotion is said to be devoid of tensions.
So this is
But
two things. One is, this is where knowledge comes in and faith comes in. That you have the faith that everything we're doing is not for us, it's him doing through us. And it's that knowledge that I'm not going to react to bodily harm or suffering. And this example, every time I read it, it's the same example that stays with me, which is Jesus Christ. Right? The last 24 hours of Jesus Christ, the crucifixion, the pain he went through, the whip, the thorn, the crown of thorns, being like all the gruesome violence he experienced in the last 24 hours. But everything coming out of his mouth was nothing but nectar. Yes, he experienced all of it. He screamed in pain. All of that happened. But what he kept saying, Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They are not in control of their lives. Don't blame them. And he kept praying to God, let your will be done. Let thy will be done, not mine. And towards the end, while he was praying and people were making fun of his faith, where's your God? Look at you suffering. You're like a dog, ye, wo, vagara, vagara. And all of that was happening. But even then, he just looked up and says, Father, why have you forsaken me? I hope this was your will. And that's when, I mean, if without going into too much detail, but that's when this dark clouds came, shower, rain, his soul moved, and all of that happened, right? But it reminds me over and over again that no matter how much he was a human being in the same body like you and me, with the same amount of structural process inside, mind, body, intellect, senses, organs, sab kuch same hai. But it's just that his connection to divine was so strong, his faith was so strong, that suffering for him was also yoga, a way to connect with him. And that is why his legend stays on. It's not for any other religious reason. It's just that pure act of bhakti and yoga that he was able to display. Right?
And then closer home, right? Like closer home, it doesn't have to be that extreme, but we deal with smaller problems of life, and how do we deal with them? Faith can, really play part in that as well. But we learn a lot more about Bhakti Yoga in the next 6 chapters as we go through. But just to give you an example, our classes facilitator Kumar, right? Recently, he went to he went back to India, right? This was a while back when things were kind of like pretty bad.
November.
November?
November.
Oh, yeah.
Early November.
October,
So
November,
before,
somewhere around that, he went to India to meet his parents. Things had opened up a little bit, and he traveled there for 2 weeks. He just had 2 weeks. His brother was coming down, super happy that, for the
Yeah.
first time in like years and years, God knows how many decades, the four of them are going to be together, mother, father, and both the children. And they're like really, really looking forward to it. So he took this 2 week off, flew in, and as soon as he landed at the airport, he tested positive.
no, he didn't test positive.
He tested positive.
No. So his brother flew in from Germany. As soon as he landed in Mumbai airport, and he called and told them, "Oh, I've landed." His mom said, "Don't come home. We all have tested positive."
Okay. So,
So-
mother, father, and no, he tested
So,
positive.
I'm confident.
Whatever. Somebody tested positive. At the end result was that he could not go home. Okay. He actually had to check into a hotel, and he tested positive because he was quarantined for 2 weeks. His parents used to come out and see him.
It's the opposite. So he checked into a hotel, and then he would go under the building in Chembur every day, and his parents would come to the balcony to say hi, hello, and they'd talk to each other for 15, 20 minutes. He would try and arrange for food or whatever else that he could. And he did his classes with us throughout the time that he was there. And again, not a word of complaint.
Why
No
me? Why
bitterness.
us? There was this only two
They had booked
weeks that we had
holidays and
together.
they had booked holidays in Lonavala, ye wo, nothing.
Everything got cancelled, and yet there was not a trace of complaint, not a trace of sadness. Like, it is what it is, and we will make the best of the situation. I mean, that is such a powerful way to live life, right? This is an example of how, some of these, how we deal more powerfully with situations that come up in our life, which are, certain things are beyond our control. So I thought that was phenomenal. Move forward.
But if there remains even a trace of worldly values, the splendid discipline degenerates into self-conceit. A devotee has to bring about a complete change in the personality in which pursuit of pleasure and slavery to instincts give away to love of and complete surrender of his will. But if worldly values are given even a slight concession, it becomes a great misfortune. In Gyan Yoga, the aspirant has the conviction of everything being divinity. In Karma Yoga, a man sees himself in everything and deals with everyone as he should like himself to be dealt with. Do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. In Bhakti Yoga, a man...
So before we,
Let her complete the sentence.
no, so I do want to say something about this first. So one is worldly values here essentially refer to desires. Right? So it's mentioned a few times, even a trace of worldly values, even a trace of worldly values. Essentially, worldly values refer to desires. Even a trace of desires inside of you can lead to downfall, can lead to you falling from faith. And the second, which is something we appreciate and understand as karma yoga, and we understand this as people. Do unto others as others do to you.
As you want others to do.
Yeah. But the reason why I'm breaking it is this part we understand. Do we implement it? Maybe not. Right? But we understand it. But it's that next leap that transforms our life, which is the very next sentence, which is forget doing to others the way you'd like to be dealt with. What if you start treating everybody as God, like the way you treat God in your temple at a festival? The bhav with which you do a puja, or we've done puja in a temple, the state of mind with which you enter a temple and you offer yourself, and it could be asking for something, it could be gratefulness, it could be whatever. Imagine if you were able to bring that in every interaction. That is bhakti. that is knowing that every part of this world is divine. Yeah, sorry.
In Bhakti Yoga, a man considers everyone to be form of the Lord himself, and himself to be the servant of the Lord. The sentiments of a devotee are expressed aptly by Goswami Tulsidas in Sri Ramcharitramanas. The entire world is a manifestation of God. I bow to it with both my hands folded. And, O Hanuman, the single-minded devotee, wavers not from the thought of being only the servant, the entire creation being a manifestation of the Lord. Ordinarily, a person nurtures a feeling of dislike in regard to other persons or circumstances. However, such feeling vitiates the vision of a devotee. Goswami Tulsidas says, a devotee of the Lord is free from desires, passion, and anger. He views the entire creation as divinity itself, and so where is the place for any dislike? If an aspirant overcomes this difficulty, the path of devotion becomes clear, and the help of the Lord becomes available to him in his life's journey.
So, sorry, go on. So when you're able to see life this way, where everything is a manifestation of the Lord, and if you sit and think about it, it is, right? Every sentient being has a piece of his energy and soul, which generates and regenerates in physical form, right? Everything is is part of his Maya. I think we've shared this story earlier about the Scorpio, right? The Om Swami and the Scorpio. Yes, no?
I don't recollect.
Okay.
People don't remember.
So Om Swami is a realized saint right now, and he was going through a process of realization where he went to an ashram in Banaras. He took under the wing of some guru, and the guru made him sleep on the floor. And it was a very unkempt ashram, made him sleep on the floor, and there were lots of mosquitoes. That was one big problem. But the second big problem was a lot of Scorpios. Right? And the Scorpios, when he would sleep, he couldn't sleep the first couple of nights because he was so afraid, like, I'll get bitten by a Scorpio and I might die, right? Scorpios are dangerous. Then one day he sat on his charpai, and
He didn't have a charpai. He used to sleep on the floor.
So
that's why they could come up on him.
So they, sorry, not charpai, what's it called? That anyway.
He used to sleep on the chatai.
Chatai. And he made a prayer, and he said, there was a Scorpio right next to him, and he said, the same energy that is in you is inside of me. If God wants me to die in this moment, me killing you or moving you away will not save me. I will die regardless. But if God wants me to live, then you, little Scorpio, you have no power over him. So let us come to this agreement that let his will be done. And he went to sleep. And he stayed there for 6 months or 7 months. And not once did he get bitten, even though he was every day surrounded by Scorpios. And this is that faith that comes in. The same energy that exists in the Scorpio exists inside of you. Right? The other example that I've shared is in Gandhiji's ashram in Tolstoy farm. Right? He had a work shed, and there was a German guy, I never remember his name, it starts with K, that used to work with him, and he was petrified of snakes. And they had a tool shed there. So he had to go into the tool shed to get some tools. And as soon as he entered the tool shed and he picked up the tool and turned out to go, 2 Russell Vipers stood on his way, heads raised, ready to bite. Right? And Gandhiji had a very strict rule in his ashram of non-violence. Like even a mosquito you can't kill a mosquito as well, right? So his fear came up, and then he was like, no. Gandhiji is very clearly said not to hit, not to harm. So he put down the tool and he basically prayed, saying, the same energy that is inside of you is inside of me. If his will be it, then I am ready. If his will not be it, then please do what you feel is necessary. And after 2-3 minutes of standing there and just expressing love, like I will love him and I will love his creation, the two snakes slithered out. And that's the power of faith and bhakti. Right? When you see divinity everywhere, then you connect with everyone everywhere. You connect with everyone through love. And when you connect with people through love, you transform them. There's no question about it. We all jump over hoops to experience love, right? So if you become that person who works out of love because everything is divine, the world becomes your oyster. And when you do this, what is said in the last line is the path of devotion becomes clear and the help of the Lord becomes available. The other word that we use a lot in our class is miracles. All of these stories can be perceived as miracles to a person who just doesn't have faith. This was a miracle. But as a person who has faith, you realize this is God's way of helping us and being around us. The third story that I wanted to share here was there's a person in our class. She had to go through surgery in Singapore. And she was very, very, very scared. And she was in her a hospital gown, about to roll into surgery. And it was something with the head or the ear or something. So it was a serious surgery, full anesthesia, all of those things. She's very scared. She's in the hospital gown and she's like, why am I scared? I'm studying Gita. If I can't, this is the moment. These are the war that you prepare for. I have to have faith. But she's like, I don't know. I'm going to be completely out of control. I can't seem to get rid of my fear. She's very anxious. So she just said a prayer. As they were they rolled her and put her in the operation theater. They were about to roll her. She said a prayer. Krishna, please, show me you're here. Give me some sign you're here with me. And right then somebody screamed, Krishna, it's ready. And the guy who was taking her from the hospital room, pushing her to the operating theater, that lack of a better word, compounder, his name was Krishna. And he came and immediately she woke up. She's like, what? That's great. He's like, what's your name? He's like, my name is Krishna. He's like, and what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to be with you throughout the operation theater, because that my role is to make sure physically you're fine and roll you back and forth, and anything the doctor needs, I'll support. And she's like, bus. All her fear dissipated. She was, I'm in good hands. But this is where faith does magic to you. It relieves you of this bodily connect you have of control and fear and anxiety, and just elevates you. Now, whether the outcome was good or not good, Padmaja, it didn't matter to her. It didn't matter to her. She would still be in peace, because she's in a state of peace. Yeah.
In the shlok, 3 words have been used, the full import whereof is clarified below. Bhoktaram. It means one who enjoys or suffers something. In the first line of the shlok, the Lord says that, in fact, it is he who enjoys or suffers the effort and outcome of yajna and tapas through the instrumentality of the body and senses. Yajna. This term has been explained in shlok 9 of chapter 3. Tapasam. In every action, there's a certain amount of mental and physical effort and exertion. When the action is righteous and dedicated and is done in performance of a duty only, the effort and exertion gives joyful satisfaction, and the suffering underlying that effort and exertion is also joyful. In the shlok, the Lord says that a devotee submits and dedicates to him the outcome of all the actions in the form of yajna and tapas. Such a devotee comes to have the conviction that the Lord, the God of all the gods, is the bhokta of the outcome of yajna and tapas, and besides that, he is his suhrid, a generous, loving, and friendly benefactor, having no expectations from him. The Lord bestows all his love on such a devotee unmindful of his faults. Comprehending this, the devotee attains to everlasting peace.
So I think we've talked about this. I started the explanation with this, that eventually everything rolls into him. He is the ultimate bhoktaram. Everything dissolves into him, and he is the person who enjoys or suffers something. It is not us. It is not us in this body. It is not somebody else we inflict it upon. It's him, right? The only way we can ensure we are cleared of any additional karma in our life, any attachment to consequences of our action, is by performing yajna and tapas, which means offer the effort and the result to him, so that he can cleanse us of the consequences and he can take on the outcome of all our actions, because he is the eventual I don't have a better word, but yeah, bhoktaram.
So we had read a lot about yajna. We covered yajna in great detail in chapter 4.
Yeah.
And we understood how literally every action we do in our life can be converted into a yajna. So instead of a kriya, it can become a yajna. It becomes a yajna when we have the right bhav, when we are doing that action. And there is this shloka in chapter 4, the shloka number 24, which is also one of the prime shlokas that we should recite before eating our food. It's like part of grace that you say before the food, right? Says that Brahmarpanam Brahma Havihi Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. So chapter 4, shlok 24. So what does it really say? It's exactly what Abhinav said, that everything rolls into him. Brahma, everything that we do, every activity that we do is, that in the form of yajna. It is a part, or it is a representation of him. So whether it is the ladle that puts the ahuti into the yajna, that ladle is Brahma. The dravya, the stuff that you put into the havan, that is also Brahma. The agni that is receiving is also Brahma. The action that we are doing of the havan is also Brahma, and the energy that is behind this action is also him. And the one who sees him in all of these things, his ultimate destination is also him, right? So this is one of the one of the main shlokas that we do when we grace our food before every this thing. So you can convert the whole action of eating food either as a pleasurable activity, like I'm just going to eat food, or you can convert it into a yajna by giving grace to the Lord, by being thankful for the food that you're eating, and for being thankful to the entire chain of the supply chain that has caused that food to be placed in front of you, and being blessing every single person in that supply chain that has helped you bring this food to your table. So that even that smallest act of eating food becomes a yajna. You connect with food that way, and then you eat that food not for your pleasure, but for the God sitting inside of you. You're nourishing this temple of the Lord, which is your body. So every single thing, depending on our bhav, can be converted into yajna. This is a form of bhakti mishrit karma yoga, and that's what we will learn. So there is a pure bhakti yoga, which would I think Meera ji would be an epitome of that, but that's not our route. We are not expected to go down the route that Meera ji did. She is a pure bhakti yogi. Similarly, we have learned about Jnana yogis, because Gyan Yoga is a culmination of our Karma Yoga. We all reach the same destination, and that knowledge that a Gyan Yogi has helps us keep us on the path of a Karma Yoga. Similarly, Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga is our path. So Karma Yoga is our main path. Mix it up with Bhakti, and it just becomes more beautiful. Just like you add honey to a glass of water, it becomes sweeter. That's the purpose. That's how we will approach bhakti yoga when we approach it in the next 6 chapters, okay, after the next chapter. And tap is not like, for us, tap, you have to relate to tap as anything that where we are doing any kind of exertion, mental or physical exertion. It could be in office, you suddenly had to, you have to work extra hard, you couldn't step out for lunch, you don't have time for coffee on a day, maybe you've had to do extra hours on an evening, or you had to, like, your customer needs you suddenly and you're putting in those extra time. That is a tap that you're doing. Are you doing it being upset and angry that you're being made to work extra hard because you're missing out on certain things, because now you're spending your time here? Are you upset with your customer for like pulling you up over a weekend? Or are you grateful for that opportunity of doing seva? When it is with the latter bhav, it becomes a tap. Otherwise all it does is add to your long line of karmas.
Yeah, and we discussed this, I think, in chapter 4 or 5. I think chapter 4, that action that you're supposed to do will happen regardless. That customer who's unhappy or difficult to deal with, if your internal state is, oh, what an irritating fellow, just keeps adding onto my plate, he doesn't want to use his own brains in solving problems, he just sits on top of me. But then you still do the work.
Or somebody else will do the work.
Or somebody else will do the work. But that entire experience inside of you, you've created the consequence for your own self, rather than treating it as a seva bhav that Tuvina mentioned. That, oh, it's an opportunity for me to do seva. Great. Yeah. The divinity in him will be happy.
But again, that doesn't mean that, you become a carpet, right? So Gita is not teaching us to become a carpet where everybody walks over, right? So there is always a distinction, and that distinction will come in at some stage. You would say, this is not something that I'm supposed to do. At what point do you push back? At what point do you accept something as seva bhav? Even when you push back, what is the bhav with which you push back? What is the principles on which you push back? All of this is here in Gita. So Gita is definitely like, don't mistake this as thinking that, oh, everybody will walk over me, all I will do is just like keep working like a donkey 24/7, and everybody will come and just say, oh, do this, and I have to do it with a seva bhav. That is not the case, because end of the day, we all have so many duties, right? And I cannot just become a workaholic and just be at office, because then I'm ignoring my duties towards my family, my friends, my community. They all have to be held in tandem, in balance. So one way or the other, but everything that we do has to be with the right bhav and with the right principles, even when we push back on certain things, because it's going to make me, not do another duty, for example.
And we'll talk a bit about this in chapter 6, where it emphasizes the importance of moderation. Everything in moderation, to be able to connect with your Atma, in your soul. So we'll talk about that later. Should we go to this one?
Yes. We'll do the closing as always. The closing of the chapter is done in Hindi. So I'll just say this, right? Om Tat Siddhiti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade Karma Sannyasa Yogo Nam Panchamo Adhyayah. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. We have time, pretty good time. So we'll start the next chapter, chapter 6. Just want to set a little bit of context before we start this chapter. So, I think all of us would have experienced this at some stage of our lives. When we've been out of home for a very long time, whether it's a work trip, whether it's a vacation, if you've been out for a very long time and you come home, you open that lock, there is always that feeling of home sweet home, irrespective of how amazing your vacation has been. There is, like, it doesn't matter how many luxuries you're surrounded with or how much fun you're having at the vacation or outside. Somewhere at some point you start missing home. Okay, and your home may not be the plushiest. It may not be the most comfortable place in the world. Yet there is a certain type of natural ease, a sense of belonging, a different kind of a freedom that is associated with home. And it beats all luxuries of all vacations, right? So that feeling of home sweet home is something that is very familiar to all of us. The same thing goes for our soul. Our body is not its permanent home. Our individual consciousness is constantly trying to get back to the supreme consciousness. And why is that so? Because at the core, we are beings of immense potential, infinite potential, and infinite freedom. But once the soul, the individual consciousness, gets attached to this body, more often than not, we get entangled into the petty desires and the petty tendencies of the mind and body. And that's it's not liberating at all. It is very, it's like it creates a jail like feeling for the soul. And so the soul wants to go back to its source. This is the most fundamental law of nature, the most fundamental law of nature, of creation, of destruction, that everything must return to its source. While we may have, so and so yeah, I think because everything must return to its source, it's a fundamental law of nature. That is why all of us, every single human being in this world, at some point of time in their lives, starts to wonder about the real meaning of life. Anybody who has achieved even a single moment of fulfillment at any point of their at any point of time in their lives through any means, they will always try and transcend beyond their individualism. And while we may have forgotten what is our true nature, but our soul has not forgotten that. And even if it is not a very eloquent orator of its needs, it still wants to go back to home, right? And unless we show it the way, it will always be restless. We will always experience restlessness in our lives. No relationship, no material fulfillment is going to take away that restlessness. Everything that we obtain from outside will have its temporary cycle through our life, and beyond that, we will go back to like saying that, oh, I'm not fulfilled, right? And because end of the day, we have to recognize that we are all on a vacation out here in this world, and we are all now beginning to miss home. We all want to go back home. Meditation is going home. It is going back to that source to which we belong. Meditation is that source. Meditation is that means for going back to that source. And once we go back to that source, what does that really even mean, right? In practical terms, it means that you are not any longer going to be what people around you tell you who you are. You're not going to be what the world makes you believe who you are. You're not even going to be who you yourself believe who you are. It is going to be a process of discovery. You will discover who you really are and what your true nature is, and connect back to that true nature. That primal source of bliss and joy. That is where we are going to be. So chapter 6 that we are going to do now, the Dhyan Yoga, is so first of all, why is chapter 6 coming now? If this is the way to reach that primal source, then why didn't we do it in the first instance? Like, why do I have to go through 5 chapters and then come to this? The reason is that first 5 chapters are a prerequisite for this chapter. For you to be able to actually do yoga through dhyan, you need karma yoga. It's a prerequisite. You need to have mastery over your body, over your senses, over your mind, over your intellect. Once you have achieved this mastery through careful practice of karma yoga, dhyan yoga becomes your next step. Without that, dhyan yoga cannot be built. Okay, so these are the building blocks. So first 5 chapters were the building blocks for dhyan yoga, the chapter 6. In this chapter, we are going to do a deep dive into this subject by Bhagwanji himself. He is going to tell us what Dhyan Yoga looks like. He will tell us what we need to do before doing meditation, what kind of preparation we need to do, long-term perspective, which is all about Karma Yoga, but also what do we need to do immediately before we are getting into a meditative exercise. What should our external and internal environment should look like, right? Where we sit, how we do it, what do we sit on, and what our mental makeup should be like. So we're going to learn that. Then we will learn exactly how to do Dhyan Yoga. How do we actually do meditation? We will learn about the benefits of meditation and the obstacles that will come in our way, and then how to remedy them as well. So it's going to be a full treatise, a short treatise, but a treatise on Dhyana Yoga and its benefits. And we will take this as a learning for us to bring meditation into our lives. And as I said before, meditation is not an activity that you do for 15 minutes or 30 minutes a day, or even 1 hour a day sitting in a place. That meditative exercise, as we understand meditation, is only a means to achieving a meditative state which we will be in at all points of time. That is the goal of our meditation. So Dhyan Yoga is something that is a state of being where you are in yoga with Bhagwan constantly. So let's start. Welcome, Rishabh. You've joined us after a very long time. Are you there to read with us today?
Hi. Thank you. Maybe the next time.
Okay. Okay. So, Anupama, will you read with us today?
Yeah, sure.
Chapter 6. Let's start.
Yeah, I have little cold and cough, so I might disturb you guys in between. So, chapter 6, Atma Sanyama Yoga or
Sorry,
Dhyana
just
Yoga.
one second. Let me start this, right? So when we start, Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. That's how we should start every chapter. Okay. So just take a note of it to anyone who starts the chapter. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Ath Shashto Adhyayaha.
Om Shri Paramatme Nama Arth Shashto Adhyaya. Atma Sanyama Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, the yoga of self-mastery or meditation. Introduction. At the end of chapter 5, the Lord made a brief mention of the technique of meditation. Some practices facilitating meditation were also narrated briefly. For meditation, mastery over the body, senses, mind, and intellect is absolutely necessary. In this chapter, a more detailed analysis of the subject would be given. Therefore, this chapter is named the Yoga of Self-Mastery or the Yoga of Meditation. Connection, whenever a discipline is practiced, whether it is for Shankhya, Nana Yoga, or for Karma Yoga, a sense of devotion to the Lord is essential. Therefore, treating Arjuna as representative of a householder, the Lord speaks of devotion-oriented Karma Yoga and says.
So just one other thing to add from this is yoga, which essentially means connecting with Bhagwanji, is everywhere. As we read in the last shloka, divinity is everywhere. Our ability to see it is clouded because of our body, senses, mind, intellect, and add ego there as well. I guess ego sits with the mind. Our ability to connect, see, visualize, appreciate it doesn't exist because we are being led by our senses, mind, ego. Which is why for us to be able to see this yoga, which exists everywhere, this connection that exists everywhere, we need to have meditation. Because meditation connects us to our own soul. And when we connect to the essence of who we are, we will see that essence around us as well. Right? So now we can read the shloka.
Shri Bhagavan
Shri Bhagavan
Anashritah karma phalam
Anashrita karma phalam
karyam karma karoti yah
karya karma karoti yah
sa sannyasi cha yogi cha
sa sannyasi cha yogi cha
na niragnirna chakriyah.
na niragnirna chakriya.
Anashritah is one who is not craving or has not taken ashray, has not taken refuge of. Karma phalam, karma phal, the results of the actions. Karyam is basically action. Karma is also action. So karyam is basically work, and karma is action. Karoti, one who does. Yaha, that person. So, such a person. Sannyasi and yogi. Such a person is a sannyasi and a yogi. No, not. Niragnir, the one who has given up Agni, one who has given up the use of fire in their life. For example, for cooking food. Chakriyaha is chakriyaha and has given up actual actions. So a sannyasi who has given up the actions, performance of actions.
The Lord said, a person who performs his duties without craving for their outcome is a renouncer, sannyasi, and is also a yogi. These terms do not signify merely those who give up performance of actions or use of fire for cooking and for religious rites.
So here,
Exactly what chapter 5 says, right? Who's the real sannyasi?
Correct. So he's just emphasizing again and reminding us that a sannyasi and a saint is not a person as may have been preconceived for people, is a person who lives in Himalayas or is wearing a saffron robe or is sitting by the Ganga, he's given up his family. Like all of that doesn't make you a sannyasi. That's the colloquial word we may use in our society, but that's very clear. That is not a sannyasi. Sannyasi is not a person who gives up the world, and that alone doesn't make him a sannyasi. He may have given up the world, but what makes him a sannyasi is giving up their craving for an outcome, giving up their desire.
Giving up likes, dislikes, ego, and attachment to results.
So
that is the person who's a real sannyasi.
So sannyasi can be you and me. And I can also tell you that we all are being sannyasis in various parts of our day. Because we are actually doing our duty with the right bhav, without that end result action. And in those moments, we are being sannyasis. We just need to extend it to more number of due activities that we inculcated. So you and I are sannyasis. We just need to strengthen our practice.
Devotion-oriented karma yoga. Ordinarily, a renouncer is understood to be one who gives up the performance of actions. Such a renouncer would even give up the use of fire for cooking his food and would subsist only on fruits ripened by the heat of the sun. The Lord speaks of this practice as customary for the cadre of sannyasis, but he asserts that in fact that person should also be considered to be a renouncer and a yogi who keeps on performing all duties selflessly and assiduously without any longing for the result of those actions. These terms, according to him, should not apply merely to one who gives up action or the use of fire as is customary for sannyasis.
Perfect. Bhagyashree, you'll read the connection.
The Lord now states that renunciation and yoga are identical.
Yam sanyasamiti prahuhu.
Yam sannyasa prahuyo.
Yogam tam vidhi pandava.
Yogam tam vidhi pandavah.
Na hyasanyasta sankalpaha.
Na yah sannyasta sankalpah.
Yogi bhavati kaschana.
Yogi bhavati kaschana.
So, so this is basically, they're basically, Pandava is basically Arjun, right? Tam vidhi, know that person. Vidhi is know that, tam is that person. Yogam, yoga, yam sanya samiti, that which is called renunciation. Okay. Na here sanyasta sankalpaha. Sankalpaha is volition. Sankalp lena is, free will, an act of free will. So one who gives up or takes sannyas or renounces the sankalp, not na is no, yogi bhavati kaschana, can definitely not be a yogi. So a person who does not give up his sankalp or volition or free will can never be a yogi. That's what is being said.
O Pandava, that which is called renunciation, know that to be yoga. One who does not give up volition or exercise of one's will cannot be a yogi.
So here I think a very important word, or the understanding that we need to have, is that of sankalp. And what does it mean to give up the free will or give up the volition or giving up sankalp? It can be very easily misunderstood to mean that, oh, I have to give up my free will. That means if I have no free will, then I am a product of my destiny, right? That's a very fatalistic point of view. Gita is anything but fatalistic. So we constantly talk about what does destiny mean, right? And I think when we started the New Year class that we had, we did a good discussion around what destiny means and how we need to approach it. So, and we talked a lot about it even in that class about how our free will is extremely important, because our free will determine how much of destiny do we really control. And here now he's saying you should give up sankalp, you should give up free will, you should give up volition. What does that mean? It doesn't, like, it seems very contradictory to what we have been talking about in the first 5 chapters. So the reference here is, it needs to be understood within a context. The earlier context has always been our free will to rise above our VVGP, our free will to rise above our tendencies of the mind. The, what's the word in Hindi? The tendencies of the mind that we are born with, the sanskars that we have, right? Sanskars are nothing but habits that have been created over a period of, various births that we've taken. So those tendencies, those sanskars that we are born with, we have to rise above them. We have to use our free will for that. But in this context, the free will is basically a reference to desire. And how does it connect is this? We have typically, an average human being has about 60,000 thoughts on a particular day. This train of thought or this flow of thoughts is constant. And it is called, in Hindi, there's a word called sphurna. So there's a sphurna, the flow of thoughts that's constantly going on. There are good thoughts, there are bad thoughts, and there is no person in this world who will not have impure thoughts or bad thoughts. Most of the thoughts that come to us, they don't originate in our mind. The thoughts are all around us. The triggers for thoughts are all around us, our environment. And you would realize that why you are in a certain type of environment, certain types of thoughts come to you. You watch a certain type of a movie, you watch a violent movie, a lot of violent thoughts will come to you. You go, that is why there is this whole concept of creating creative spaces so that employees can think more creatively. It's because environment has an impact on us, right? So the thoughts will come to us based on the environment that we are constantly interacting with. We hold on to some thoughts, and there are others that come and they don't even touch us, right? So if an impure thoughts come to you, and they will, you don't hold on to it. It comes, it goes. There are three parts to a thought. It originates, it touches us, and it goes away. It's up to us whether we hold on to a thought or not. When we hold on to a thought, whether inadvertently or with a or by volition, we want it, so we hold on to it. That creates our reality. When we hold on to a thought, that means that thought has not gone away. It has not died its natural death. We have held on to it. Now we are ruminating on it. We keep thinking about it. The more we think about it, that thought now starts to take a life of its own. That thought will then transform into a longing. A longing will then become a desire. And a desire will finally propel us into action. That is the start of everything, a thought, and our holding on to a thought. The volition or the sankalp that has been asked to give up here is this holding on to the thought that creates a desire. That is what we need to give up. And this is going to be something that we will learn in meditation. How to observe the thoughts and just let them go. Don't stop them. Let them pass. There are lots of different types of meditative exercises. One such exercise is one that allows you to just watch your thoughts and let them go. Don't hold on to them. Don't judge yourself for what thoughts are coming. They are not your product. They are not your baby. They just come and they will go. Don't hold yourself responsible for those thoughts. Right? So that is what is sankalp here, which basically end of the day means what? That we have to give up expectations for the karma phal, the expectations of the end result. That is the first step. The first step, and which will then lead us to the second step, which is to actually give up goals and give up desires. Right? So do not mistake giving up of sankalp or giving up of free will to become a passive, person who's like, oh, I can't, I have no control, and become a fatalist destiny person. That's not what is being asked here. You have to still exercise your free will to rise above our VVGP, rise above our sanskars, to do the right thing, to use our free will to rise above our likes and dislikes. Okay?
That was beautifully explained. Just to add on to this train of thought, is what we choose to hold on to, right? Those thoughts, whether they're negative or positive, is a reflection of our own trained and untrained mind.
What is called as conditioned mind. Our mind has been conditioned because of our environment, because of our habits, and all these births we have been conditioned.
And when you have an untrained mind that is just moving along with its own sanskars, as Tuina mentioned, its own likes and dislikes, then your mind becomes your enemy rather than your friend. So you can hold on to a thought that makes you anxious. You can hold on to a thought that makes you feel like, how could that person do it to me? You could hold on to a thought of, that person did it because of which I didn't get this. And you hold on to this based on your own sanskars, your own impressions from previous birth. But because you hold on to it, your own mind becomes your enemy. And part of meditation is training this mind to choose and hold on to the right thoughts, so that this mind becomes your best friend. Right? There are so many people who, and the second layer to this is the starting point that Tuina was saying, right? Like if you are in a MBS and you walk in, the thoughts you will have and the way you will be immediately, MBS is Marina Bay Sands, so it's a 5-star hotel here, right? So as soon as you walk in, your way you'll be, your posture, your dressing, you just be a very different person compared to if you walked into
A school.
a school or I was thinking like
Temple.
a prison. The thoughts should have a completely different. It's not you choosing thoughts. Thoughts happen to you. You're just choosing to hold on to certain thoughts. Right? And this is what is the starting point becomes very important. And which is what we say is have satsang. Interact with content, interact with people, interact with environments that rise above those positive thoughts for you, rather than take you away from your divinity. So how do we structure our lives? How do we structure people around us? What books are we reading that raises our divinity rather than the other way around? Because everything else in our life will follow that. But yeah, I thought it was beautifully explained. Well done. Please.
Identical nature of renunciation and karma yoga. Volition, sankalpa, or exercise of one's will is a function of the mind on the basis of which it dwells on objects of the world in the hope of deriving some pleasure or of keeping sufferings away. In this shloka, it is asserted that for a renouncer or a karma yogi, it is essential to give up the exercise of one's will totally.
Anmol, you'll read ahead.
Yeah, sure. The Lord spells out how the exercise of one's will can be given up totally.
Aruraksho mune yogam.
Aruruksho mone noyogam.
Sorry, I'm going to say this again because I missed the two r's. Arurukshor muner yogam.
Arurukshor manoyogam.
Karma karan muchyate.
Karma karanam muchyate.
Yoga rudhasya tasyaiva.
Yoga rudhasya tasyaiva.
Shama karana muchyate.
Shama karanam muchyate.
So Aruruksho is one who has the intention of climbing. Mune is the Muni, one who contemplates. Yogam is Yog. So one who has the intention of climbing or starting the process of Yog. Karm is Karm. Karan is the basis, the reason. Muchyate, kaha jata hai, is said to be. Yoga rudhasya, the one who has already climbed on yoga or one who has already achieved yoga. Tasyaiva, that person. Shama is calming down. Basis is the basis or the reason or the process, the means. Muchyate, uchyate, uchyate is kaha jata again, is said to be.
For a sage who aspires to attain to yoga, action is said to be the means thereof. For the sage who is established in yoga, calming down of volition is the means. The 2 steps to yoga. This shloka describes the 2 steps in the direction of karma yoga. As a first step, the aspirant practices the performance of obligatory duties selflessly and assiduously, with no solicitude for the gains or results. Such a person is said to be aspiring to attain to yoga. In the second step, the culmination of discipline leads to attainment of yoga. Then the mind is completely free of all volition or exercise of any will.
So this is like we said, right? Why is chapter 6? Why is Dhyan Yoga chapter 6 and not chapter 1? This is where it tells you that the step 1 that needs to be done is actually doing your work, being a karma yogi. That is a prerequisite. It's step 1. And you have to do all your obligatory duties. You have to do them selflessly. You have to do them assiduously, like fully applying yourself, giving 100% of yourself in every moment, irrespective of what type of work it may be. That is the step 1. And we have to do it with no solicitude for gains or results. There's no attachment to results. That is the first step, which is what we have read from chapter 1 to chapter 5, how to get to that space, right? Once we have achieved it, then we do Dhyan Yoga, and we actually, now all of this that we've done in first 5 chapters, the step 1 is basically when we are aspirants of yoga. We are aspiring to achieve that connection. We are aspiring to be in that space. The second step, through Dhyan Yoga, we will take the second step, which is letting go of the thoughts. That means we are getting to the root of all desires, the root of all actions, the root of everything is thoughts. Then we get to the second point, the second step, which is how to make sure that we don't hold on to the thoughts in the first place. So then we will, once we have done everything in the first 5, then we get to the root. Nena, will you read this?
Sure. Describing the characteristics of a person established in yoga, the Lord says,
Yada hinendriyartheshu
Yada hinendriyartheshu
na karma swanushajjate
na karma swanushajjate
sarva sankalpa sannyasi
sarva sankalpa sannyasi
yogarudastatochate.
yogarudastatochate.
Yada hi is whenever. Ne na indriyartheshu, इंद्रियों के भोगों में, इंद्रियों के भोगों में as in the objects of the senses, and na is not. Karma swa nushajjate is expectations of happiness, or there's an attachment to the sense objects, the happiness that comes from the sense objects, basically. Sarva sankalp sannyasi, one who has taken sannyas or has renounced all the sankalp or all the volition. Yoga arud is on the path of yoga or has attained yoga. Uchchate, it is said.
A person is said to be established in yoga when, having given up all volitions, there remains no longing for any object of the senses or for any particular action.
So imagine what this really means is when you've achieved this space, you have no particular desire. Okay, so you do not have any specific place to go to. You have no particular gains, goals or targets to achieve. Now that sounds very difficult to imagine and then say, how am I going to function in this world? Okay, so if I have to use it, for example, so I run a small startup right now. If I have to use this example, if I were yoga rude, right, person who is established in yoga, how would I be running this company and how would it be different if I were to run it without being in yoga? So just to give that as an example, right? So okay, so as a person who's not in yoga, running a startup would typically mean, okay, so we have targets, we have to achieve $1 billion valuation, we are going to be a unicorn and we're going to exit, right? That's an end goal. We have to exit as a unicorn. Okay, now let's do everything that we can. Obviously there is going to be customer, obviously there's going to be a product, obviously there are employees, you need to take care of all of those elements. What's the end goal? End goal is to have $1 billion exit tomorrow. I have to make sure that everything that we are doing is aligned towards that goal, because that's why we are running a startup, right? And of course, along the way, we'll create value for the process, right? That's a person who's not established in yoga. As a person established in yoga, and we'll have all these little, goals, and, we have to achieve this revenue, we have to do this product, everything will be aligned that way. Now, as a person established in yoga, there is no such end goal of having $1 billion exit. As and when that $1 billion exit happens or does not happen, I don't even know, right? Maybe there will be a $1 billion exit. Maybe we'll get a buyout at $250 million. Maybe this company won't even survive. Maybe it's going to die. because whatever, it has to die. That's the purpose for this. Okay. Don't care. The purpose is, of course, we'll have goals and targets. There are goals that, we have to have this product out. We have to have this done by this time. We have to hire people. All of that is still there. But I'm not getting, tomorrow, if there is a conversation of a competition coming through, because my job is not to get to $1 billion valuation. I don't get flustered. When a competition comes in, I'm like, oh, there is somebody else doing it. There's a great validation of what we are doing. Oh, there is something that they are doing well. What can we learn from it? What are they creating value for? I'm 100% here and now today. Right? So I'm able to give my 100% to what needs to be done today. And God will show us the way. He will show us every step of the way. We may not know the entire steps that we need to do, but whatever happens, it happens for the best. We hired a person after a lot of hard work, paying a lot of money. That person joined us in a certain role. After 4 months, I've got to step up, I'm leaving. After he got trained by us. Okay. Now, either I can be really upset about it. Like, what is this? We put in so much of effort training this guy up. He had no idea about this industry. We trained him, and now he's going to a bigger, just because he's getting a fatter paycheck, right? I can have a lot of dvesh for this person. Or I can see it as, okay, whatever happened, he came in for those 4 months, he helped us set up certain frameworks. And now, for whatever reason, I don't know, but it's good for him. It's good for us that he's left. And we'll find somebody else who's more suitable for the role going ahead. So I will do whatever action I need to do to hire the next person to fill that role, do whatever we need to do for the transition, but not carry the baggage of upset. So the actions remain the same on a day-to-day basis, but the intention, the feelings, or the baggage, the headache is not there. You're feeling completely light. And obviously, it's not on an everyday basis. There are days I feel extremely light and I know I'm doing everything right. I'm in yoga here. And then there are days where you're down in the drain and they're like, oh my God, like, what am I doing wrong here? Why am I getting upset? Why am I getting anxious? What is causing this? There is an attachment somewhere that's causing this. What am I attached to? What am I getting upset about? Right? Then you go back to the principles and discover what's happening. But the moment whenever you are yoga rude, you are yoga rude because you are feeling complete lightness of being, even while doing and exerting yourself to the hilt. Your body may be physically totally tired, but you will mentally be happy. You'll be in a space of bliss. You'll be in a space of lightness. That is what happens when you reach this space. That is the characteristics you will experience. So we're towards the end of the. Do you think we can do another one?
No, but
we'll have to
finish reading.
Yeah. Characteristics of one established in yoga. Due to the absence of all volition, the mind of a person established in yoga does not entertain longing for any pleasure in the objects of the senses. Also, any such longing is not regarded as being desirable. Having attained to yoga, such a yogi takes for personal use only that much which destiny provides, scrupulously avoiding all efforts for seeking pleasures.
This last line is fascinating. Scrupulously avoiding all efforts for seeking pleasure. It's a very short sentence, but it represents so much of time that we chase on a day-to-day basis. So many things we chase purely for the idea of feeling good or making others feel good.
Because it makes us feel good.
And if we are to reach a state of mind where we are able to give that up, imagine how much time we would have in a day. To be one, more efficient, two, to be more effective, and three, to be so much more at peace. But so much of our time just goes in seeking pleasure for ourselves and others. All right.
Including shlokas?
Yes. Om
सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ असतो मा सत्कमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Narayan, Narayan. Thank you everyone for joining the class. Have a lovely week ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.